we are rolling again. Another power hour coming in strong from the PPSA House of Pain. It is my privilege to bring in episode 7, bring in a guy that's really going to speak on a topic. And he deserves a good intro because he is a man with a lot of heat on him. So this guy, he's probably got some of the best PR lift weight room celebrations known to man. So with that, we got to bring in a little WWE, little intro. So guys, we got Scott SALWASSER here again, another guy I've known for probably over a decade. Got to spend some time with him when he was at Cal, and we've stayed in touch. And he's done a lot in the lifting world. And some guys you like to follow out there because they definitely entertain you. And this is one of those guys that can not only is a great coach, but he can definitely entertain you. So Scott, it's your platform, man. I'm here for your support if you want to bounce anything with me, but man, it's your show.
All right, AA. Well, I appreciate it, man. I'm a fan of the show and really enjoy what you're doing here. And I'm excited to have this opportunity. I wish that I had a PR celebration for you. Unfortunately, with everything going on, I'm not sure anybody wants to see my PR on band resisted push-ups. So, I don't got anything about that. And I'm going to leave my wrestling character here. I'm just going to be Scott SALWASSER here. I'm going to get out of kayfabe, so to speak. All right.
So just the one personality today.
Just one personality, man. Just Coach Sal. I'm just Coach Sal. Unless some heel busts in and hits me over the head with a chair or something, then we might have to get into it. But right now it's just going to be Coach Sal is the plan.
Awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, AA asked me to talk about speed. All right. And so the title of my presentation is Play Fast, because to me, the speed is so much more than just the 40-yard dash or the combine. It's the ultimate goal is to get guys to actually play fast on the field, whether it's soccer, basketball. I know there's more than just football strength coaches watching this. Obviously, the goal is to play fast, basically transfer that speed onto the field. And I'm going to give you my insight into one way to go about doing that. Now, this isn't exactly what we do where I'm at now at the University of South Carolina. It's not exactly what I did at the last place I was at. It's more of just a conglomeration of ideas and thoughts and a progressive way of thinking and programming and designing drills that I've accumulated over the years that I think will benefit, and I hope to benefit many of you that are watching. So without further ado, I want to show this video first because this really puts into perspective everything I'm going to be talking about here. So I'm going to dissect it later, but right now I just want to play it for you guys. This is the receiver that's about to catch this ball. He plays for the Tennessee Titans now. His name is Cam Batson, and he actually ran a 4.3 at his pro day, which is obviously incredibly impressive. But to me, there's many aspects of this video besides just speed that make this impressive, and we're going to talk about them. So check this out. So you can check it out in slow-mo. I don't know, for some of you, it might have been choppy or in regular speed, but like I said, I'm going to dissect it later, but just observe what's happening here. I know Dwayne Bradshaw's watching this. Sorry, DB, we had to put it on your Sun Devils here in this video, but so that's the video. So who am I? You guys probably know who I am. I don't need to read my resume. I'm a wannabe pro wrestler. As you can see, that was my claim to fame. So the funny thing is I've been coaching damn near 20 years and never made it on SportsCenter, but I get my underwear and I go through a table and I'm on SportsCenter. So there you go. I don't know what lesson that teaches, but whatever it is, There you go. As you saw, I'm currently at University of South Carolina, working for Paul Jackson, who I honestly believe is one of the best, if not the best, strength and conditioning coach in the country. And it's a privilege to collaborate and learn from him on a daily basis. So right now I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm loving every second of it. I'm a big Bruce Lee fan, and there's a quote. I'm not going to read it, but you can see it from Bruce Lee. And the quote, basically, the gist of it is that people want to copy a lot of times, or they're confident in stuff that someone else might have done, or I got it from so-and-so, or whatever. And they're insecure when they come up with stuff on their own. But original ideas, original thought is great, man. So as you watch this, don't do any of this stuff just because I said that it's good and you respect me, and do think outside the box, and don't just do stuff because you saw it somewhere and you're copying it. Like, take pride in being an original thinker and creating things and testing them. To me, that's the art and the fun of what we do. You know what I mean? Like, we're not just following a script, man. We get to really create, and that creativity a lot of times is to the benefit of our athletes. All right, so this is the constraints that I work with. This is the situation I'm with. Obviously, college football currently. All of you that are watching have different constraints, different numbers of athletes, different numbers of coaches as well. Field, times, day, week, year, you know, but basically you're limited by the amount of time, the amount of space, the amount of athletes, the amount of coaches. So basically everything you do needs to be within that scope. All right. If you see some stuff in here or anywhere really that doesn't fit with your facility or your coaching staff, learn from it, put it away. Maybe one day you'll use it. Maybe you can use it now and you can learn from it, but everything is viewed through the lens of what situation you're in. And that's very important. All right.
Real quick, I got a really good story about that. So my first head job was University of Idaho, and I left USC, and, you know, we were used to going outside and having great weather to do speed work and jump and throw med balls and all that fun stuff before we would lift. And I remember I went up there, of course, a little bit different weather in Idaho in the winter program. So I had all this stuff ready to go. So when we started thinking about, you know, ready to go outside and do this stuff, we go out there, you know, in the morning, and it's, you know, 32 and there's frost on the ground. And you're like, well, you know, what do we do? You know, you learn real quick that you better figure out the situation and plan your program around your situation, because I didn't have that plan yet. I was a young strength coach, and I learned real quick that I can't take a cookie cutter and bring this program exactly the way it's written and expect to do it. And just something as much as weather will change that.
Amen. Yeah, no, that's completely true. And sometimes, you know, the limitations work as a blessing. So, like, you know, Gary Uribe is a good friend of both of ours. And that was my first boss at Sacramento State. And that was an incredible opportunity. But one of the great things about it is that coming from USC with you and to Sac State, obviously he had less coaches than he was used to having. So I was basically given a ton of responsibility right away. I was coaching agilities. I was coaching, you know, stuff that like a more seasoned coach, you know, at a bigger school would coach. And to me, I took a quantum leap in my coaching abilities because of that, having to basically, you know, I got thrown in the deep end and I had to swim, you know? So, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, so to speak. So this next slide, it's basically, as coaches, we know there's a million different things we got to develop, right? Like, this isn't I'm not going to talk about each one of these things, but it's basically, we have a limited amount of time. Those of you that are college strength coaches, limited by the NCAA, and you got all these targets to train, right? So when I talk about speed, and that's really all I'm going to talk about is speed, and I'm also going to talk about multi-directional speed. but know that I don't think that that's all you need to do. You know what I mean? Like, I realize that there's a complete program, and in a couple slides you'll see, but there's all these targets, all right? So I'm not spending my full 8 hours allotted on speed. Yes, I think it's important. Yes, I think it's arguably the most important, but obviously there's a million other things, as you see on this list, that we also need to develop in addition to speed. All right, and without getting too sciencey, the reason speed is so great, obviously, is a variety of different reasons. Without reading word for word the slide, basically, CNS-wise, neuromuscularly, it's unparalleled, all right? More force in less time than basically literally anything else you can do, anything you can do in the weight room, just as a training stimulus. Obviously, as athletes, we know faster athletes are successful, but I'm talking here just about training. When you train speed, which we're going to talk about how to do, you're getting the highest CNS output. You're getting high forces, high velocities. You can see all the muscle contractile components down there at the bottom. It is a very potent stimulus neurologically. And I had to put Charlie Francis's name on there somewhere. He has a motor unit recruitment chart, which you guys can look up as far as what exercise recruits the most amount of motor units. But really, he could be on every page because he's been a huge influence to me. And honestly, like, here's the strength dork in me coming out. One of the highlights of my life, and this also dates me because it shows that I'm older, because God rest his soul, he's passed away now. But when he used to have his online forum, you're talking about, for those who don't know, this is Ben Johnson's track and field coach, world record holding coach, influence to many NFL college coaches. He complimented me on his forum on my knowledge of the speed, and I was like 28 at the time, and that was a huge feather in my cap at the time. And anyway, still a huge influence on what I do today. So here's some other aspects of speed you may not have thought about, right? Injury reduction. No matter what position you play or what sport you play, unless you're in the pool, all right, you take thousands upon thousands of steps in practice, all right? And every step has a cost. If you would imagine that each step is slightly messed up or slightly less mechanically efficient than it could be, right? That's going to take a toll on your body. Imagine the weight room analogy would be like every squat you do is slightly messed up, all right? Eventually your back's going to hurt. Same thing with running or sprinting, except you take infinitely more steps, all right? We talked about how fast the contractile components of speed are, all right? That's the best hamstring exercise, right? There's a reason that people pull their hamstrings sprinting and not doing RDLs or something like that, right? It's because of the speed, the contractile velocities and components. So how to best train that? Obviously, there's plenty of stuff we can do in the weight room to prepare our athletes, but at the end of the day, you got to sprint. You got to expose them to those velocities. Economy and efficiency. I talked about how every step has a cost. Well, when you run, all right, there's something called speed reserve, right? The faster I am and the more efficient I am, the better sprinter I am. It's not as hard for me to condition. It's not as hard for me to play my sport. It's not as hard for me to do different things that are asked of me because I'm faster, right? It doesn't require as much. So the weight room analogy would be like, if you squat 600 pounds, it's not that hard for you to squat 405, right? But if you squat 425 and I put 405 on the bar, right? We're gonna put your favorite song on and you're gonna, you know, slap you around and get some chalk, right? It's just different. So the faster you can be, all right, it's gonna place a lower metabolic cost and energy expenditure doing submaximal things, all right? Practicing, conditioning, etc. And finally, there's a good quote there by Nick Winkelman, all right? Because people talk about the 40-yard dash, all right? Like, is it specific? What does it really test? Honestly, right? It's kind of irrelevant. Is it specific? I would say no, but it trains all the speed qualities, all right, as you can see in the quote, that you need, and that is the basis for sports skill. It's basis for all movement, all right? It's the foundational biomotor ability, to get fancy, all right? Every agility, change of direction, everything that you're gonna do movement-wise basically is influenced and enhanced by speed. It's once again to connect it to the weight room, all right? If you get stronger in some of your more fundamental movements, right? If I get stronger at power clean, well, I could probably hang clean more. You know, I can probably do other explosive lifts. If I squat more, all right, I might not be a great front squatter, but I'll probably be able to front squat more, right? If I bench more, I'll be able to incline bench more. So it's basically the key movements, of which movement sprinting is the key movement. It is the king. It enhances everything else. All right. Now, true speed. All right. And I think I think as a profession, we're past this. This was more back in the day when you never really trained speed. It was just conditioning. All right. It's basically 10 to 60 yards because we're not elite sprinters. We're not going to be, most of us are going to be well done with our maximal velocity before 60 yards. But for those faster guys, 10 to 60 yards, less than 8 seconds in duration, because we want it to be pure in terms of energy systems, pure ATP, PC system, all right, with sufficient recovery to repeat the effort maximally. Again, if we're talking about the weight room, if you do a 1 rep max, all right, and you do your 100%, all right, you're not jumping right back under the bar, right? If you're gonna try to beat that, if you're gonna try to hit 102%, you need more rest, all right? Now, once again, the constraints of our situation dictate a track coach is gonna tell you, right, 6 minutes between reps or 1 minute for every 10 yards. I get that sometimes that's not always feasible, all right, because we're in a time crunch. But the point is, give them time to recover, all right? And the key point there is 95% plus velocity. Now, there's a difference between intensity and effort, all right? Because if we're conditioning, all right, I'm going to give you max effort. I might be dog tired and I'm going to give you max effort. I'm going to run my butt off, all right, but I'm not going to run at 95% of my best velocity. So if I'm a 5 flat 40 guy, all right, do the math, all right, then I need to be running like a 5.1 or a 5.2 to really train speed and no slower. All right. And so that's different from effort. It's actual intensity. It's actual output, just like in the weight room, just like on a barbell. All right. So along with that is maximal intent. We just talked about how do you get athletes. All right. And AA, you might have some other thoughts besides this on ways to get athletes to truly dig deep and give their absolute maximal intent on something. One way in the weight room, obviously, is to load them up with a heavy weight. Outside, the 3 main ways that I've found are, number 1, upper left-hand corner, you see some laser timing numbers, all right? Time them. My last year at Texas Tech, I was fortunate enough to have laser timing systems, and every speed day we would laser time at least a couple reps, all right? It forced guys, because they're competitors, they want to put up good times, all right? They want to impress, they want to improve, so they're going to run hard. Bottom left-hand corner, all right, if you put a bunch of guys out there with NFL logos on their shirt, holding up a stopwatch, guys are going to run hard. You know, I always used to joke that, man, we should just get some people off the street and have them wear their favorite team's shirt and line them up on the field and just don't do nothing, just hold up a stopwatch, and I know you guys are going to run. And then the last one is get guys to race or compete. So I just have a video of, you know, guys racing, right? They want to beat each other. They want to compete, you know, so call out the winner if you want, call out the loser, but guys are going to race and compete. So basically those are 3 main ways to make sure that dudes are not just going through the motions. They've got to move as fast as they can.
I agree with all those as far as getting guys to compete. Going back to your laser timing and stuff, obviously, sometimes, I mean, getting time crunch, that stuff's hard to set up sometimes, you know, and obviously sometimes it slows down your flow because you're trying to record things. Do you feel that a lot of people are shifting now to the catapult, just getting the pure mile per hour because they can get that data?
So obviously catapult is fantastic if you have it. Obviously that's expensive. The laser timing at the time, believe it or not, even though I was at Texas Tech, we actually didn't have GPS. So, we had to work with what we had, and it actually wasn't too bad because we basically did like dominoes. All right, I just like lined everyone up, and now, granted, we talked about the constraints of your situation. We had an army of interns. So, you got one guy writing stuff down, you got one guy calling out the laser time, you got one guy, I'm just coaching, but yes, if you're the guy that has to hold the clipboard and time and coach the drill, then that's not going to happen, obviously. Then that's going to kill it.
And something I'd like to share too is I stole this from Noel Durfee, who's at Duke. And, to take out the human error of the touching the stopwatch or the tripping the remote. We actually set up like a laser at like 5 yards from the start, and then a laser at 20 yards from the start, and it would give them a 15-yard window of acceleration, because they would trip the laser as they ran through the first 5. When they came through the 5, trip the laser, and then they'd trip it at the 20, and then you had a 15-yard picture window of how long did it take him to cover that 15 yards. So if a guy, say, doesn't know how to get in a great start position really well, it kind of takes that out. It's just like, hey, this is a pure acceleration window, and it's foolproof on human error. And it's a really good way to show, guys' progress over time, because it's consistent with how it's timed.
Right. I agree. Also, you're not having to chase guys back and say, wait, that didn't count because somebody messed up the starting mechanism. Because if the laser is going to mess up, it's going to be the starting mechanism. Running laser to laser like that is that's money. Yeah, I agree. That's the most user-friendly, convenient way to make sure nothing messes up and you don't waste any reps. So programming philosophy. All right, that's Dylan Cantrell. He's on the San Diego Chargers now. Like, you'd be hard pressed. I'm actually going to take this discussion in a different direction. So I'm not going to tell you guys how to the technique for accelerating or the technique for absolute speed and stuff. There's plenty of fantastic resources for that, but that's a pretty darn good 0 step. Would you agree, Double A? Is that a good looking 0 step?
Good posture through the body. I like it.
Yeah, man. So that kid's pretty dialed in. So anyway, like I said, I'm not going to talk about the actual techniques here, but again, that's a good 0 step right there coming out of his start. What I am going to talk about though, in regards to the linear piece before we get into the change of direction piece, is the programming. So as you can see, sprinting basically comes down to large force, correct direction, short period of time. All right. So in order to run forward, we have to apply force horizontally. As you can see by his 46-degree body angle, that's what he's doing. All right. Large force, which there's many different ways to increase force. In the weight room, obviously getting stronger. On the field, pulling sleds increases the force of each step. All right. There's a variety of different ways to increase force, and then a short period of time. All right, basically apply that force explosively, rapidly, with great technique, and you will improve your speed. All right, and I promise I'm not going to be that simplistic about it, but it's just, I don't want to get into a huge technical explanation because, like I said, I'm going in a little bit different direction than y'all are probably used to here. But it's basically multifactorial, as you see, strength and skill, all right? You can't be weak. It's tough to be weak and fast, all right? And also it's tough to be strong and run poorly and be fast. It's a bit of a blend of both. All right, so programming guidelines, and we're getting honestly to the end of the linear piece here before I get into what I think you guys will find unique and progressive here. But basically, over the course of my career, these are some time-tested guidelines that I've used, that I've found success with. Basically, short to long acceleration, so shorter distances to longer distances where you have more of a chance to utilize absolute speed or maximal velocity, all right? Slower initially, resisted, or on a hill, to faster, free. So honestly, when people talk about coming back after a layoff, which is obviously the situation we're in now, I always honestly like to go to resisted sprints and or hill sprints, even just outside of COVID, even when we had guys, you know, sometimes you give them a week off for 4th of July, or they come back after the month of May, all right? I always like to get them on some resisted sprints. I felt like you could get more out of that with very little injury risk, as opposed to just keeping everything very, very short and maybe being below the threshold of where they should be that time of year, all right? And then general to specific, which is honestly gonna be a big piece of where we're going from here. The linear volume, there's no specific, I don't believe there's any chart or anything that has those exact numbers on it, but going all the way back to, as I mentioned, me and G back at Sac State, this is kind of the volume that I believe you guys at the time used at USC that he found successful, that I saw and brought with me. And honestly, it stood the test of time with me, man. Stood the test of time. I feel like this is a good doable amount of volume that gets results without being too much. So there you go. But it must complement the entire program. Like I said, sometimes people ask for a speed program. What's your speed program? Or they'll say, what's your squat program? Or what's your bench program? Well, I mean, it depends, man. It depends. What else are we doing, right? Because nothing lives in a vacuum. Your speed program, your lifting program, your conditioning program, it all has to complement each other. The program that complements each other the most will be the best, right? Rather than all-star programs that are pieced together like Frankenstein, all right, where they don't really fit and you try to jam them in there, jam them together. That's not the best way to do things. As I mentioned, got to be 95% velocity for a specific distance, regardless of the distance, 95% of your best time for that distance. And there's other factors that affect intensity, all right, besides just velocity. Type of start, static starts, believe it or not, are actually harder than rolling starts. Distance surfaces, obviously, if you're on a track versus grass, all right, you'll run faster on a track, but it's harder on your body. Grass is slower but softer. Whether or not you're pulling a sled load, other things to think about in terms of intensity, all right? I borrowed this, as you can see, from Exos, and this is gonna lead us into what I'd like to spend the majority of the rest of the time talking about, all right? Multi-directional speed. So this is not necessarily going to be how to run the pro agility or how to run the L drill, although those are fine drills, all right? It's more going to be how to take the linear speed we just talked about, all right, and get it to the field, right? Because if you can't get it to the field, if you can't get it to the soccer field, basketball court, volleyball court, whatever, it's not going to do you as much good. So I thought this was a good summary of all the different things that go into multi-directional speed, which obviously, if you play a sport, that's big. However, I would like to, at this point, share a quote that really kind of changed the way that I thought about agility. So my buddy Cam Joss, who's at Indiana now working for Wellman, he said, if you think about it, in most sports, you would never change direction without another person being there. All right. So like, think about football. All right. I catch the ball. If I turn around and AA isn't standing there to tackle me, in fact, no one is, am I going to do some fancy footwork drill like you see on Instagram? Hell no, right? I'm going to run for the end zone. All right. And obviously you can think of situations where there's an exception, but for the most part, I was like, you know what? You're right. Like most of the time, if you're changing direction, it's because something's going on. All right. Either someone's right there or someone across the field, the play is going the other way. Something's going on that makes me change direction. I'm not, other than the footwork gurus that you see on Instagram, nobody's changing direction just for the heck of it. Which brings me to another nice Exos slide that I borrowed. I did pay for it though. I got my XPS certification though. So I paid for these slides indirectly, but here's another good overlap. All right. basically the task, the environment, and the athlete, all right? So the agility is basically a interaction between all of these different things, all right? Other than the situation where you're at the combine and you're running the pro agility for time, all right? It's just you and the drill, but most of the time it's you, your teammates, the opponents, something's going on that's making you change direction, and that's what we're gonna delve into here, all right? So now, with that in mind, let's take a look at this play a little more deeply, all right? So as I mentioned, this is a 4-3 guy. So yes, he's fast, all right? If he wasn't fast, I realized this play wouldn't happen. He wouldn't get in the end zone, right? He was actually our quote unquote, you saw the races, all right, in terms on the slide about maximal intent. He was Texas's fastest man, all right, which means he won the most races in our team competition. All right, so, but if you watch the slide, there's a lot going on here besides just speed. All right, he's gonna catch the ball. He immediately has to figure out where everybody is, right? Right now, he's gotta accelerate, decelerate. Old boy trips on himself. This guy stopped in his tracks. That guy doesn't even move. And there he goes into the end zone, all right? So there's a lot going on there, right? There's acceleration, there's deceleration, and there's a lot of it having to do with awareness and a quick ability to process information, all right? Now, I might be biased towards this because it kind of describes my own athletic career, which we all are biased in that way, in a way, but I played football at UC Davis, all right? And I actually tested really well. I actually won our team combine or whatever, power index, whatever it was back in the day for pro agility, vertical jump, 40-yard dash. But if you watched my film, you would say I was a bad athlete, and it never made sense to me, right? For years, it never made sense to me, all right? Why are some guys can run a fast 40, they can even change direction, all right? But then they get on the field and they don't play like that. And, you know, you might say, oh, well, they're stiff or this and that. I know they're not stiff because I've seen them squat, you know, hamstrings to calves with 400, 500 pounds on their back. You know, I know they're not stiff. What's going on here? And it occurred to me that a lot of it has to do with the ability to process information, all right? And you can read the quote there, like literally, if you are slow on the uptake, all right, your body will be in an anxiety response, which will make you rigid and look stiff and look like you're a bad athlete, which makes sense why all these guys at UC Davis were slower than me on the stopwatch, worse than me in the weight room, and moving faster and making more plays than me, all right? That's the difference. Decision making, all right? You can see stiff, can't bend, bad athlete, workout warrior. Maybe he is stiff, all right? Maybe he doesn't like contact. I'm not saying that this is the answer for everything, but what I am saying is a lot of times that guy is a workout warrior because he can't process information. He freezes up. He can't see what's going on around him, all right? You can see in that second point, we all know guys on the opposite end of that spectrum. All right, you can probably think of guys AA that didn't have an impressive 40, didn't, you know, vertical jump the best or have the best pro agility, but somehow they're always where the ball is, right? Why is that? Well, because they can slow the game down in their mind and they can see what's happening. Now, a lot of that is watching film, right? Preparation, which is what we do, right? We're preparation specialists, all right? And part of that preparation is that, but they can slow the game down, all right? Sean Mishka, some of them you know, Movement Miyagi, he's got what's called the 3 Bs, right? Behavior, brain, and biomechanics, all right? And that's basically a fancy way of saying attention. What are you paying attention to? What are you looking at? Is it the guard pulling? Is it the running back? Is it the quarterback? What is your intention, all right? What are you trying to do? And then what is your action, all right? Now that I know all of that, I know what I'm trying to do. I know what I'm looking at, all right? But what action am I going to take and how quickly I'm going to take that action, all right? And that's what we're going to try to improve, right? And it's a logical, progressive way to improve it. All right. This I put in here for fun. So like my point with this was actually at the Lubbock Rodeo. So this is a bullfighter here, American bullfighting. All right. And basically my point to this is, who do you think is a better athlete, the rodeo cowboy or the bull? All right. If we timed the 40, the bull would probably win. Obviously, the pro agility, he's not going to win because he's not that smart, but he doesn't know the drill. But for the most part, you can probably pick the best guy on your team right now, and he would get stabbed by the bull. I know I would get stabbed by the bull. This guy probably runs a slower 40, a slower pro agility than any of us, and he's not going to get stabbed by the bull. All right. He's in boots on dirt, but yet for some reason, he can outsmart this bull. So what's going on there? He basically, he's number one experienced, right? He's probably seen lots of bulls, all right? And he's watching the bull. He's looking for mannerisms. He's trained to be perceptive, all right? And he connects his movement to perception. If he just went out there and pre-planned what he was gonna do, the bull would get him, right? If he just went out there and said, all right, I'm gonna come out of the gate and I'm gonna run 10 yards to the right, 5 yards to the left, 5 yards to the right, he would be impaled, all right? It's about connecting what he's gonna do to what he sees, all right? And the fancy term for that is called representative learning, but all that really means, all right, like I said, I'm not trying to get overly sciencey here, all right? I'm just trying to be accurate. It's basically recreating situations. All right, that situation that you saw in that video with the touchdown reception, that can easily be recreated, all right, in our environment. It's different than some people think it's just playing tag or whatever. I mean, for my daughters, it could be that simple, right? That's an introductory way of doing this type of stuff. Just play tag, all right? But it's more complex than that, all right? It's trying to get athletes to connect movements to the environment, to what they see, all right? As you see in the last slide, we're trying to create decision makers, all right? Now, that doesn't mean that we're just gonna do a bunch of wild, fancy stuff, just getting them to, you know, mind read and anything like that, right? We're gonna coach movement just like everyone coaches movement. We're just gonna look at it from a different perspective, all right? We're still gonna teach you how to accelerate, decelerate, power cut, you know, speed cut, like all that is still relevant. It just gets to a point where once you master that, what's next? How can I then take that and get it to the field, all right? How can I connect perception and action, all right? So this is where knowing your sport comes in, all right? Position meetings, conversations with coaches, special teams meetings, all right? Special teams drills are great. You know, last summer, once my guys at Texas State got good with some of these drills, and I'm going to show you guys the progression here in a second, we basically got to the point where we were doing drills that the special teams coach literally said that we saved him a week of preparation in training camp, because a lot of the open field manipulating space awareness type drills we were already doing. You know, and that wasn't necessarily intentional, but it worked out well for them. All right. So knowing your sport, I couldn't do this. I couldn't get to this level. I'll be honest, with soccer or, you know, some other sports that I've unfortunately coached early in my career. I could do a good job getting them stronger, in shape, but to really be great, I didn't know the sport well enough. You know what I mean? So to get to this level, you've got to know your sport. If it's soccer, then it's soccer. If it's basketball, then it's basketball, you know, and there have been times when I didn't know it well enough, and I'm still learning, you know, I'm still learning. There are positions that I don't know well enough. Like at South Carolina, I have the opportunity to work with the linemen, and I played D-line, but I never played O-line. So for instance, in a couple of days, I'm signed up for a Zoom offensive line clinic. I'm not trying to become a football coach. I'm just trying to understand O-line play better so that I can better coach them, all right? Better connect the drills we're doing and the language we speak to their position. I think it goes a long way. All right. So these are things. Constraint manipulation is basically a fancy way of saying, what am I going to change? All right. What am I going to adjust? How can I manipulate these drills? All right. And you can read it all. I mean, you can change the athlete, where they start, their location on the field. You can give them a task. All right. You got to get from point A to point B, or the task could be, you just got to stay away from AA. He's coming to get you. You can change the rules of the drill. You can affect the opponents, all right? You can say, you can put 2 opponents, 3 opponents. You can say, all right, the opponents are capable of doing this, or they can only shuffle, or they can sprint and shuffle, or, you know, manipulate their behavior. They're trying to get you, or they're trying to just mirror you. I mean, really, your creativity is the only limit, all right? You can change the area. So like the best analogy is that, all right, if you put me and the bull in my living room, how am I going to move? All right. Probably very short and sudden, quick, right? I'm going to try to outquick him. If you put me and the bull in a football field, the bull's probably not the best example because he's going to run me down. But if I think I'm faster, I might just take off and run. All right. So the size of the area, the shape of the area, that all makes a difference. So the type of surface, is it slippery? All right. Am I in boots on dirt like the cowboy? Or am I in cleats on a nice groomed turf field? All that makes a difference. Also, you can do this different ways. You can use it for conditioning. You know, you can use it for speed. Like you can give guys full rest, you know, and use it as your agility training. After, like I said, I'm going to go over the progression in the next slide. You can use it as your agility training as you get closer to the season for more specific agility, or you can condition. Right? Shorten the rest periods, get more reps. You know, what are we conditioning for? We're conditioning for the sport. So that means the movements and the muscles that are used by them playing their position, playing their sport. All right. And so we want to condition those muscles and movements specifically. It sounds like bro science or gym science, but it's true. You know, conditioning is a lot of times movement and muscle specific. So we want to condition them in ways that are specific to what they're going to be doing. All right. And preparation is inoculation. Basically, you want to expose them to everything, all right, that they're getting ready to do. We want a vaccine for the COVID so that we can expose our bodies to it so that we can produce antibodies, right? We want to expose our players to everything that they might see, obviously in lieu of actual physical contact, because we can't give them helmets and pads until they actually get to practice, to expose them to it. You know, you talk about, all right, they're just going to do these drills and practice tackling drills, right? But you watch a tackling drill. How many reps are you going to get? All right. Like an Oklahoma drill or LSU drill, we used to call them back in the day. You know, these tackling drills, how many reps do you get? 1 or 2? And then they blow the whistle and they go to the next station. You can put these guys in situations like that for whatever your agility volume is, 12 reps, 16 reps, times twice a week. By the time they get to camp, they'll have been in a situation to either cover or go tag off on somebody so many times that it'll be second nature to them. All right. And this could get really wordy, but I'm going to make this as simple as possible. So yes, you still do quote unquote closed drills. Yes, you still work footwork. Yes, you still teach them how to decelerate. Yes, you still teach them how to cut. It's obviously all a progression. We just don't go out to the field and all of a sudden start chasing each other, trying to pull, you know, our t-shirts out of our pants. We progress. So initially it is footwork. Put your foot here, put your body here, as you can see, upper left-hand corner, and then we'll just follow the arrows here. Put your foot here, stand like this, stand like that. All right, very controlled. All right, and then you just talk about the technique of the full pattern in a highly closed environment. All right, run to that cone. When you run to that cone, break down like this. All right, again, put your foot here, do this, do that. All right, we're still in a contained environment and we're doing agility drills like anyone else does. All right, and then you just change the environment. I gave you a whole list of things you could change on the last slide. You change some of those things, but it's still controlled. It's still run to the cone. It's still use this cut, use that cut. All right. And then you just progress to where you start opening that up, all right? Just like, God willing, here in South Carolina, the restaurants are gonna start opening up and the gyms are gonna start opening up. You just start opening up opportunities for these guys to do different movements, all right? You use the full pattern in an open environment, which means it's unpredictable, but it's still controlled, all right? Maybe you know where the opponents are coming from, you know where the opponent's gonna be at. Maybe, as I said, he can only shuffle, or he's very limited in what he can do, or it's predictable. He's gonna run at you and try to get you, but you basically, it's more predictable of what he's gonna do. Then you just open that up, all right? You try to make it as variable as possible, all right? Now we're on the technique of the full pattern, high variability, all right? Now you take the governor off the opponent, all right? He can basically do whatever he needs to do. He can come at you fast. He can come at you from an angle. He can basically do whatever he needs to do to try to complete the task of the drill, all right? Maybe there's, you know, he starts next to you or behind you, or maybe he starts at an angle, all right? But then after that, that's all you know. You don't know what his strategy is going to be. You got to defeat him with your strategy. So maybe we've worked on a variety of different cuts. You know what I mean? Maybe we worked on a power cut, a speed cut, a lunge cut, you know, so we've worked on all those things this whole time. We worked on them with cones. We worked on them, the footwork. We've worked on all those things. Now I'm just giving you a chance to use them, baby. I'm taking the governor off, put it to work. Use what strategy. Your movement is the key, and that defender is the lock, all right? Use what strategy you think is the best, all right, to get past him, to complete that task. And then it blends into practice, right? One-on-ones, 3-on-2, all right? It's representative situations, quote unquote, representative learning. And then as you see in the bottom left-hand corner, it just leads to what they're already doing, 7-on-7, 11-on-11. You know, it's a very logical progression, starting with drills that we all know and already do. It's not some wild and crazy out of left field stuff. It's stuff you're already doing. It's just a little bit different way to look at it. So I believe on this next slide here, here's some sample activities, which I know people are trying to visualize what's going on here. Now I will say this. So you're gonna see in these videos a yellow belt, which is basically a Velcro belt that will break if the guy gets away. And you'll also see guys wearing flags like you would in flag football, all right? And the reason for that is there's basically two different things you can do with another person. You can either try to go get them, or you can try to stay with them, all right? And those two modalities represent those two different things. Now, I will say that the reason that we have them on is because we had a team competition where guys were awarded points, all right? And so talk about environment, talk about constraints or the situation you're in. So I needed a way to know who won and who lost, all right? Does that mean that I think that you can't do these drills without those pieces of equipment? Or do I even think that those pieces of equipment make the drills better? It's debatable, but I needed a way to say, all right, Osmus beat SALWASSER's butt. He gets 1 point, and these modalities allowed us to do that. So again, these aren't the best drills. These are just examples of what I'm talking about. You can see here, this is somewhere in the middle of that progression. You just got a guy that's running upfield, and he's got basically, he can go right or left or come back to the ball, right? He's in an open environment that's slightly unpredictable, but there's still only so many things he can do, right? Like he's not gonna jump and turn in a 360, right? He's only gonna go one of 3 different directions, all right? So that's an example of an unpredictable open environment where it's still constrained and somewhat predictable, all right? Bottom left-hand corner, you're gonna see a running back, and he's going to try to get from point A to point B, which is there's a cone on the other side of those bags. He's going to try to pick a hole, run through those bags, and you're going to see Jordan Brooks, who actually was drafted in the 1st round this year by the Seahawks. Not because of this drill, because God gave him talent and work ethic, but, you know, he did this drill, and you're going to see him right here come up and make the play. All right, so that's an example of a go get 'em type drill where you're pursuing and not just trying to mirror or stay with somebody. All right, you can talk about speed. All right, contextual speed. So we talked about just the idea of linear speed. All right, now we're going to take that and put it into context. So what you're going to see here in the bottom right-hand corner is a receiver and a DB. The DB is going to react to the receiver's movement, drop, step, turn, and run, just like you would on a go route or something like that. So that's the context, and then they're going to race, all right? So we're training speed, but we're putting it in the context of something that they might do as part of their position, and there's a winner and a loser, and I can give somebody a point. All right, it's just a race from a positional dynamic. In this last one, upper right-hand corner, all right, if you want to get really specific, all right, you can do something like this, where you do a positional movement. And then go and pull the flag. Now, like I said, that's basically, I'm giving you a sampling of the progression we just talked about. All right, I'm not saying those are the 4 best drills I've ever created in my life. There's some solid ones. Obviously, I've created some duds as well. I one time had the O-line, basically, I don't know if you remember American Gladiators Powerball, basically, where you had to run and like get past somebody and dunk a ball in a basket. That was a drill we did, and then we'll never do again, because obviously, as you would imagine, it wasn't what I wanted. But that's what I'm talking about, man. Like, as long as it's safe and you know why you're doing it, try it and see what happens. So I'm not going to talk about this whole slide. There's 2 pieces, all right, that I want you to pay attention to. This is everything, right? I mentioned that speed is only a piece of the pie. Change of direction is only a piece of the pie, all right? But this is everything and how you progress it. But movement, which is the second one down, all right? That summarizes everything I've talked about, all right? Smaller space, lower speed, simpler tasks, more rules, less freedom. That's early in the progression, all right? That's shuffle side to side and mirror me, all right? Larger space, higher speeds, complex tasks, more bodies. That's a 30 by 30 box with 3 defenders and 2 offenders, and we got to try to get across the finish line and do it, communicate with each other, and come up with a strategy, all right? And then at the bottom, a lot of people think of, typical linear periodization, right? High volume, low intensity, high intensity, lower volume, all right? But I think of progression, and this is, one way to look at it, but I think of progression as just moving closer to the sport or the playbook, all right? So like early on, yes, we're doing some of the drills we talked about. That would be early in the progression. Then we're going to those more representative learning activities, to 1-on-1s, to 7-on-7, to 11-on-11. So as we get closer to the year, we're just doing stuff that looks more like football, all right? And earlier in the year, less like football. It all has a purpose, right? You always have to give them what they need and nothing they don't, because you don't have time not to, all right? Everything we do has a purpose, but that's the way that I prefer to think about things. And I think it's a logical way to progress. All right, these are just my last slide of thoughts. I know it's 4:53, all right? All practices are not created equal, and all drills are not created equal. So yes, your coaches might already be doing stuff like this. Great, then you don't have to do as much of it. I get that. That's fine. I'm not trying. I don't want to. Then we can spend more time getting strong and fast in just a general sense. Then you don't have to do these drills, all right? But if your specific work at practice consists of stuff that's not really specific, then, this could be a help. This could be a help. All right. If like I said, if they're doing it and they're doing a great job, then great. Then change your focus. That's where you have to be a coach and use your logic, and that's the art of coaching. All right. But the other thing you have to look at is, even if they are doing these things, again, the repetitions. A guy might get 2 reps in a tackling drill, or maybe at basketball practice, they're doing reactive drills like this, but they're just not getting a ton of reps, you have a chance to rep it. In our environment, we can give them more reps and more exposure, more preparation. We can give them the vaccine, we can inoculate them. All right. Return to play injury prevention. When I was at Texas Tech, I was the return to play guy. Here at South Carolina, we have an excellent return to play guy, Julian Whitehead. But at Tech, I was the return to play guy. And what I found was my guys would look 100% in closed, predictable drills. You could not see them compensating or favoring anything. But as soon as we would start to do some unpredictable components, all of a sudden, there he is. He only wants to use that one leg, all right, because it's not pre-planned. All right, so to me, it has a huge niche in return to play. Obviously, it increases transfer to sport. It looks more like football or basketball or soccer. And AA, I know you're a car enthusiast, with your brother and everything, who I follow on Instagram, and I love the hot rods and all that, man. It's the car analogy, right? Like,
yeah,
a pit crew, all right, to be great, it has to know what the race plan. It has to know the track. It has to know the course. It has to know the race plan, right? It can't just know the car.
and
right?
the weather.
And the weather, man. Just because you know how to fix an engine doesn't mean that you can be on a NASCAR pit crew, right? Just like lots of guys can fix an engine, right? But I need to know what I'm fixing the engine for. I need to know how to change these tires because I need to know what we're planning on doing and what the track looks like to know what tires to put on, man. So that's to me, that's a microcosm of what we're talking about here. So again, man, I could watch this video over and over, but hopefully in light of what we talked about, man, and this is really my last slide, but hopefully in light of what we talked about, hopefully I made it clear. And it's not do this. It's not, this is our program. It's, man, maybe this is a different way of thinking about things, that I think is creative and could give you a benefit. And hopefully in that play, you see some of the things we talked about and some of the things that you can do to maybe change things up and experiment and see what works. And this is my last slide. That's baby Ms. right there, my beautiful daughter, Stella, who I think is watching actually, and my other beautiful daughter, Charlotte, my two princesses. But as you can see, I'm grooming her AA. She's got the women's title belt right there. She ain't ready to go through a table yet. But we'll work on that, and we'll work on our entrance and all that. So that's my contact info, email, social media. Hopefully y'all learned something and had as much fun as I did. So that's all I got.
Awesome. Hey, Scott, really appreciate it. Good stuff. I love I'm glad you came on and kind of really went on a topic, and it was good. A lot of the people had kind of nudged me a little bit and specifically wanted something on speed. So this came in at a good time. The next speaker for Thursday, guys, is I'm going to come in and talk about building a culture of strength and how I build basically a philosophy of my strength and things like that. So I'm really going to go over this background now behind me that I built about 2008 and talk about why I built it and how I built it and who suggested I do something like this and the influences and stuff, and how I really utilize this philosophy on hiring strength coaches, how we can cultivate a culture of strength in our programs, and how I'm going to utilize all those things. So that's going to be my topic of basically building a culture of strength in the weight room, within our football program, within our strength staff, within everything we do. So coming in on Thursday with something I hope everyone enjoys. And again, Scott, I really appreciate this, and I'm going to drop it down here, and we'll stop this one now and get to episode 8 on Thursday, 1 o'clock power hour.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have fun.